Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Smackdown live review. And this was the first episode of Smackdown Live in a post-draft world, and I've got to say, I enjoyed it. Was it as good as Raw? I wouldn't go that far, but I think, that's two very different comparisons for a few reasons. I think with what Raw had, or with what SmackDown had, rather, between its roster and being a 2-hour program, it did just fine. And some very curious booking decisions. That's not to say necessarily good or bad, but indeed very intriguing. But I enjoyed the 2 hours. What about you, partner?
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I don't think that this was a bad show by any means. There were some very interesting decisions that were made, but there were also some really entertaining segments that I can't wait to talk to you about.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. So with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. And I've got no heats of the night tonight. Thought about having a nitpick, but honestly, after the discussion you and I had, I think you convinced me that maybe it was a bit petty. So I'm just going to keep a clean slate for the first night. What about you?
Oh, it's hilarious because you said, I'm going to combine these two nitpicks into one master nitpick. And I disagreed with one of the two nitpicks you were going to combine into one, but I didn't disagree with the other one, and you decided to just do away with both of them.
Yeah, but your reaction just made me feel like I was being petty, so I'm just going to let you have the floor.
Okay, then I guess I'm the petty one because I have two nitpicks and a heat of the night.
Oh, wow, a heat of the night on the first show. All right, what do we got?
All right, so the first nitpick, I'm honestly kind of disappointed in you for not being one to point this out and kind of annoyed by this. The entire women's division is out of the locker room. They're in the ring. They're on the ramp. All 6 women that are on SmackDown are in the arena cutting promos. Eva Marie just had a really ridiculously amazing entrance. And then we got to cut to commercial, and it's never mentioned again.
Honestly, I didn't really mind this too much, because I think you and I even said in conversation, it kind of gave me the impression, well, the division is all about Eva Marie. So once she comes out, you've seen everything that there is to see. And that's kind of the vibe that I got. So I honestly didn't mind it too much.
Right, but what was the purpose of having all those women out there? Just to show Eva's entrance?
I think it was the first step, hopefully taken in a long-term angle, because what SmackDown's going to do with their women's division, which a lot of people have pointed out, seems pretty bare bones, is going to be very intriguing to me. So I just looked at it as, okay, these are all the women we've got. They're all vying for some kind of dominance that really right now doesn't exist because the women's championship is on Raw, and we don't know how that's going to work out. But then we have to remember that Eva Marie, who I think they're banking on with everything they gave her, from being the final entrance to the voiceover, they're banking on her being the top heel in that division, even though I think maybe it'd be better trusting Bliss with that role, but only time will tell.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Eva Marie is nowhere near the performer that Bliss is.
Right.
But she is much bigger than Bliss, which means that you're never going to have that underdog feel with Eva Marie. And she's got the corporate machine behind her. And I don't really think that she is that much worse than Bliss as far as pure in-ring technical savvy goes.
Right.
I've already said before, Bliss is like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 in the ring. I don't think Eva Marie's that much worse than like a 3.5, maybe 4 even.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think you've got a good point there.
Yeah, I mean... And the thing with Eva Marie is she already has such a natural hatred behind her from everyone that, it's just, I think she's the correct choice for now to make the top heel in the women's division over Bliss, just because Bliss feels more like a mid-card heel at this point.
I would agree with you. Hopefully Bliss can really elevate herself over time, but how they treated Eva Marie on this first episode, I had the biggest, stupidest smile on my face, only because I know the baby faces that can get payoffs from this.
Yep.
If they make Eva Marie this big, obnoxious deal. And you've got to, you know what, I'm going to use a phrase here with Eva Marie, because I know a lot of people on Twitter, and I live tweeted SmackDown, and again, like I said on Raw, thanks to everybody who joined me tonight. So much fun. You got to see the forest for the trees. And I think while everybody's jumping the gun like, oh, why is Evil on the product? Oh, change the channel, this and that. I am seeing a heel that fans are going to delight in seeing any female babyface come up and beat the crap out of her, or at least take a title off of her, or get a triumph over her. So I'm trying to see the forest for the trees, and I loved it.
Absolutely. So, that being said, I second heat, well, not heat of the night. I have one of those, but my second nitpick, really, Rhino Smackdown, the land of opportunity, the land of putting focus on the performers, no glass ceilings, and you decide to bring in Rhino to overshadow Heath Slater.
You know what the funny thing is? In hindsight, I really don't think I would have given a shit about this, like even making it a nitpick, if what Heath Slater did preceding this wasn't so good.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if it was just Heath being Heath, and,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of being how we expect him.
And
like
just doing the obnoxious, what happened, baby?
Yeah, I really wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, it was necessary. Maybe not a fan of it, but it was necessary. But Heath actually really sold himself like $1 million. And then it's like, I was actually, by the end of it, I was rooting for him to be a last-minute addition because I'm like, yeah, SmackDown, throw it in Raw's face. They took a chance with Balor. Why don't you take a chance with Heath Slater? I know two completely different planets, but still, like, shake things up. But then Rhino. So, yeah, that's why I co-signed onto this nitpick, only because what preceded it by Heath was, I think, the promo of his career. And he's been here for years, so I think that really says a lot.
And we'll talk about that when we get around to that segment on our discussion. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. So first nitpick is the sudden and seemingly meaningless end to the women's segment, and then the second nitpick is Rhino. Now for the heat of the night.
Yeah.
I can already sense what the WWE is going for with this whole Dolph Ziggler winning thing. And my heat of the night is congratulations on seeing the upside in Dolph Ziggler, but you're still a minimum of 2 years late to that train.
See, now, here's my thing with this, because I know this is probably what every faithful TWitWoW listener, how you guys doing, has been waiting for us to talk about. Dolph Ziggler picking up the upset.
And I don't have a problem with that. I don't. It's interesting to me, especially if they go with Ziggler turning heel. But the problem I have is that they're trying to make it seem like this big deal. And like, I literally, JBL used the word meritocracy like 3 times tonight. And they're trying to make it seem like Ziggler is like the hottest thing in town. And he's the guy that all of the internet marks want to see win. And he is sort of that internet darling that everyone thinks never gets a shake. And you would have been right if you had said the exact same thing, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago. But right now, everyone's sick and tired of Dolph Ziggler. They don't care about Dolph Ziggler anymore. He still gets lukewarm pops in the arenas, but most people don't really care about him. If you wanted to appeal to the hardcore fans and gone with the meritocracy vote, you would have given this to Bray or AJ.
It's such an interesting thing seeing that they picked Dolph, because the last time I was really excited for this man's career was when he was the last man standing at Survivor Series and he ousted the Authority with the help of Sting. They did nothing with that.
That's where the 2 years ago thing comes from, because that was 2.5 years ago.
Exactly. And I think they have the chance. I can totally see where your heat of the night is coming from. And I think to a degree I co-sign to it, but I do think they have the chance to tell a really interesting story here, which I don't know if they will or not. You've always got to be, kind of half in, half out with WWE with your expectations, because here is a guy that did that, nothing happened, most recently lost a feud with Baron Corbin, and yet gets the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match. Now, this is, again, the WWE title. Raw may be making a new one, but this championship is the cornerstone. And now Ziggler is in the passenger side, the second half of that SmackDown main event. They could tell a really interesting story about a guy that's been so down on his luck, and to use an old Ziggler phrase, is just so damn sick of being so damn sick. I do think, and I will say this, I will only be 150% on board with this if he turns heel. Because with his, rotten luck and only now bouncing back and everything, and the promo he cut tonight, which we'll talk about, I think he's ripe for a heel turn. And I agree with the people that were tweeting he needs to turn heel. Especially because, look, if you want Ziggler to be a compelling force in that match, you're not going to have him go in as a babyface. That's just stupid because Ambrose is going to murder him.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if anybody's going to support Ziggler. If you want to make him a compelling force, you've got to turn him heel. I liked his heel booking when he was chasing the Intercontinental title. He would always sneak attack Ray, lay him out, this and that. That's how I would do Ziggler. I'd have him, scout Ambrose, maybe get zigzags whenever he had the opportunity, pose with that WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and just have him cut promos all the way like, I've earned this spot, I'm controlling my destiny now. These fans weren't here for me when I was the victim, subjected to the authorities' whims. Now I control things. Again, building on his initial promo, which we'll talk about, I think it could be a great story, and I think we could even have a worthwhile SmackDown main event, but he's got to turn heel in the next few weeks. Absolutely imperative to me.
Yeah, but again, though, like, I think maybe him turning heel could turn me around on this, but my issue isn't, why would you make Dolph Ziggler win? He's so bad. He's not really bad. It just feels like he hasn't cared in a while. The problem I have with this is that you're finally acknowledging that Dolph Ziggler is really, really talented, and you're doing it at a point when his stock is basically at an all-time low.
I mean, I agree.
Or at the very least, the lowest has been since he won his first world title, I would say.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. It's just we're here now. And now I'm curious what they're going to do about it. We'll see what kind of rehabilitation they can do with Dolph's image.
Let me just put it this way. This feels like that time where WCW had the hottest band in the world, and it turned out to be like AC/DC or something like that. And it was like the mid to late 90s, and this is a band that peaked in like the 80s or 70s even.
Right. And we'll see how the story develops, because I really hope that this wasn't just a decision because, Raw had the fake out with Finn Balor taking it all, so we need our own fake out, because if you really want to do that, I still think Bray Wyatt would have been an excellent choice. Yeah. But, they went with Ziggler. I want to see what kind of story they tell. I agree with you with everything you said about the stock and everything, but now it's a game of rehabilitation, and how seriously are you taking Dolph Ziggler, because how seriously the WWE takes him will probably mirror how seriously I take him heading into SummerSlam. So
yeah, we'll see. We will see. That's my biggest complaint here isn't that I'm angry that they're giving Dolph Ziggler a push. It's that I'm angry that they didn't give him a push when he actually deserved one, and that they're acting like he's like strike while the iron is hot, and like they're striking him because he's hot now when he's clearly not.
Exactly. I totally get what you're saying. And again, I agree. It's definitely a little bit too late. Probably the second decision that was a little bit too late.
You know what I think the problem is, too, is that they didn't build him up at all. He doesn't feel like a legitimate contender to the title at all.
Yeah, the only quote-unquote build-up was that really heartfelt promo he gave that preceded the main event. Because I do think he had the best promo of the guys in the challenge, because he, really made it personal. And that should have been kind of a giveaway. Oh, wow, this is really personal to him. He's probably going to win it. But, yeah, they've got a lot of catching up to do. I mean, like you said, 2 years' worth of catch-up if they want anybody to give a shit, because I do agree. Like the iron's not hot anymore. The credibility isn't where it needs to be for us to initially be excited about it, because you can even tell with us talking about it. They kind of have to work for our excitement here with what they've chosen. And now the question is, can they do that or not? So,
absolutely. All right, so there's one other negative thing that I really want to talk about, but I don't know whether to classify it as a nitpick or a heat of the night, or just please burn it with fire.
You know what? If it's what you told me personally, I would classify it as a nitpick. But that's
commentary.
Just Yep.
Mauro Ranallo is the king, but not even he makes up for JBL and David Otunga's incompetence.
And it's funny, like, I wanted to be stoked about David Otunga on commentary. He's not really that good, if I'm being honest. And as far as JBL goes, like, I've given up any hope of him being 2006, early 2007 commentary JBL. And honestly, and this is just, I think you really looked a gift horse in the mouth moving Jerry Lawler to panels, because him and Mauro Ranallo were definitely gelling. I do think they were the closest thing you were going to get to replicating Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. And I think, you kind of took that dynamic for granted. You're like, oh, well, Mauro could probably pull that off with anybody. Nope. Yeah, JBL is just not going to cut it.
No, and Lawler, I thought, was finally starting to really hit his stride. And even on pre-show panels, I think that he is probably the most entertaining thing that they've got going, and that's even despite, for most of the time, being on the same panel as Corey Graves. I mean, I love Corey Graves, but Jerry Lawler, when he's on, he's better than Corey Graves, even when Corey Graves is on.
Yeah, I would agree. I love heel Jerry Lawler. Kind of broke my heart when I read the news about the shakeup in the draft because I was stoked that Corey was on Raw, and we're already seeing that pay dividends. SmackDown, and we said it a lot in our post-draft analysis, SmackDown in more ways than one got the shaft. Now, did they do pretty well with their roster on the first night? Sure, so I won't complain about that. But yeah, commentary definitely sank for me. I really wish Morrow and Jerry had stayed together. But that just wasn't in the cards, and I guess we just have to get used to JBL in a whole new setting now.
Yeah, I mean, it really does just come down to, I think, mostly JBL, because, you know, when Otunga was on commentary where it was him, Morrow, and Saxton, I noticed him less.
I would agree, yeah.
And I mean, there was still the really stupid lines like, if anyone can beat AJ Styles, it's Jimmy Uso, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But still, he was less obnoxious, and I don't even think he's obnoxious, so that's not the right word. He was less glaringly out of his element when he was in there with Saxton and Morrow rather than JBL. JBL, it literally, he's just the common denominator. He just makes everything worse.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you there.
With his constant screaming, with his unrelated sports references, with his tendency to interrupt Morrow even when Morrow is trying to get a point across. Like, literally going to the first commercial break, Morrow was like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back with this Battle Royal. And then JBL said, Battle Royal! Ah!
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree, man.
I wasn't sure if you were still there.
No, sorry. It's just, and that's what really frustrated me about JBL on commentary is you could tell like Morrow was trying to do his thing, and you really should just let Morrow breathe and do his thing.
Yeah,
but JBL just felt the need to interject.
He's lead. Let him lead.
Exactly. Because even Jerry Lawler, to his credit, if I remember, Jerry Lawler would always let Morrow get his stuff in, and he would always find the appropriate time to get his Lawler-esque quips in, which I liked. So, I never really had a problem with that. Again, I thought they were a great duo, but JBL, he always has this sense of urgency, like, oh, I've got to say this stuff, it's so important, but it's really not. I mean, more often than not, it doesn't even connect, but I think what makes it worse now is you're trampling over another guy who actually is quality, who actually is connecting with us to get your stuff in. Yep. And that's what bothers me. I can take JBL. But what I can't take is when somebody of quality like Morrow is being trampled on when he's trying to do quality work, doing the play-by-play and telling a story just so JBL could get, as you said, his irrelevant sports reference in, or this, or that, because that's when it just really gets obnoxious to me.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still time for the team to just kind of mesh better and for them to kind of get some chemistry going because this is their first show together, but just so far, I'm giving it a thumbs down.
Yeah, I would certainly agree.
Thumbs up for Morrow, thumbs down for everyone else.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you there.
All right, so now we can actually talk about the show, and I think I got all the negativity out of my body.
All right, well then we can be positive, and don't you dare be sour, because let us get into our SmackDown live review, and we've got a little bit of a mirror from Raw the previous night. We have got the general managers, Daniel Bryan, Shane McMahon. First, we see them backstage, and they pretty much say, this show is going to be, about you and about you, pretty much saying, like, yeah, this is a fan-driven show, land of opportunity. They come out, they're surrounded by the SmackDown roster, and they get right down to business. They say, look, we've got the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Dean Ambrose. We just need an opponent for him now at SummerSlam, and we're going to determine that with a 6-pack challenge tonight. Straight away, Ashton, what do you think about the idea of a 6-pack challenge?
Oh, I love it. I think that's something that we haven't utilized in nearly long enough. It's something that I think WWE could get away with every year or two, and I wouldn't get tired of it.
Yeah, honestly, I knew they were going to do something because Raw had the 2 Fatal 4-Ways that were tournament style and then the one-on-one main event, the winners of those 2 Fatal 4-Ways coming together. I didn't know if they were going to do a championship scramble or just, something like that. Or like, a beat the clock, not a championship scramble.
Yeah.
Because then Ambrose would have to compete in that. I thought they were going to do like a beat the clock or just something like that. They didn't. And I like the idea of a six-pack challenge. I don't know if I would have preferred it maybe to be like, elimination style. But, one fall to the finish made it feel more sudden, like greater sense of urgency. Like, oh, whoever gets the pin, they might go to SummerSlam. So I agree with you. I really liked it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the six-pack challenge thing, that's cool. The Battle Royal I thought was a great idea, and admittedly I wasn't a big fan of Apollo Crews winning, but it's still kind of that new, exciting, young superstar that people really kind of want to see go places in the future, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
All right, so the 6 competitors that ended up being in this match, because I already gave away that Apollo won the Battle Royal, it was Apollo, Cena, Bray Wyatt, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, and AJ Styles.
Yeah, stacked six-pack challenge for sure.
Yeah, so first match of the night actually was the Battle Royal, and, it was all right. I mean, the way I put it is, it couldn't have been a bad match, because if it was a bad match, it would have lost my attention. I would have gotten on my computer, or, different things like that, and I managed to sit through this whole Battle Royal without feeling super bored,
Yeah, I completely agree.
It couldn't have been a bad match, but it wasn't a great match because there aren't really any spots that I remember other than Apollo reversing the chokeslam.
Right.
Yeah, that's about all I remember from this.
And I will say, like, to give SmackDown Live credit here, with its booking, I felt like Kane was used right here. It's a battle royal, so it's going to annoy me less when he's dominant because, of course, he's the bigger guy and commentator's going to make a bigger deal out of him. But the cool thing about when he's dominant is that
it's a good thing Big Show isn't on SmackDown because, he's a giant, and who'd be able to beat him in a battle royal? He's so big.
Nobody. So, Kane's dominance in that kind of booking works only if there's a greater purpose at the end. And that purpose is the younger, more agile Apollo Crews getting the better of him by suckering him in and having him, use his own momentum to carry him over the rope for the elimination. That's when dominant booking like that is okay, when you want the younger, hungrier guy, to go over. And that's what happened here. Because the way it came down, I really figured a younger guy, more under the glass ceiling kind of guy, was going to go over, whether it be Apollo Crews or even Zack Ryder, because he made it to the final 3. And yeah, it ended up being Apollo Crews. So I was very happy with this decision.
Yeah, man. I knew you would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you, pretty much as soon as you saw Apollo in this match, you said that you picked him to win.
Yeah, man, definitely. I thought he was going to be kind of their answer, too. Well, Finn was the big NXT guy in their match, so, now we'll just retort with Apollo. It was kind of my logic.
Yeah, and there you go. They did it.
Yep.
All right, so now we had Shelton Benjamin's video here talking about how he's going to be coming soon to SmackDown Live, and I find it maybe coincidental, maybe not so coincidental, but I find it odd that they play Shelton Benjamin's sort of return video package announcement immediately after Apollo Crews winning the Battle Royal, because if you look at their skill sets, Apollo is basically a stouter version of Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah, I would agree with you to a point. Absolutely. Let me just ask you this question more generally to open up the discussion, because I know my notifications on Twitter while I was live tweeting kind of had a mini blow up at the airing of this vignette. What do you think about Shelton Benjamin making a return here to kind of fill up the SmackDown roster?
My problem is that he's filling the same spot as Apollo Crews, and Apollo Crews is new.
Yeah, see,
I feel like if you're going to bring Shelton Benjamin back, put him on Raw, where really the only other guy on that roster that can do what he can do is Neville.
Right.
And those guys can take up different spots in the card too, whereas Shelton and Apollo, I feel like they're interchangeable, and that doesn't really, say good things for Apollo's potential future.
See, my concern is less like anything to do with Apollo, though I certainly see where you're coming from. My thing when I initially saw it, because I was a big fan of Shelton Benjamin when he was the hot thing going and I was growing up. Like, I was in awe of what he could do. One of my favorite moments growing up as a kid was seeing him beat Triple H on his Raw debut. Thought that was great stuff. But my thing is now, though, like, he's 41.
Yep.
And I question, is he still the gold standard? What can he, because I haven't watched any of his recent stuff. I haven't watched Shelton Benjamin in, I think, a few years. Because
yeah, the last time we saw Shelton Benjamin, it was Shelton X Benjamin, and it was in a tag team match at Wrestle Kingdom 9 a couple years ago.
Right.
Or not a couple years ago, but last year in January.
Right. But yeah, I mean, even then, right, that was like a big tag match, so it really feels like a blur, like a distant memory since I've seen Shelton.
Yeah, I think that was actually the same match Marufuji was in, too, now that I think about it.
Exactly. Yeah, like, I don't know, man. And see, that's another thing, because you look at, and I know you said this in the opening segment, Heat of the Night, we had Rhino come back. Now Shelton Benjamin gets this vignette. And I know one of the big complaints about the SmackDown roster is it seems like the roster for the old guard. And some people, I think, are going to be really down with that. And other people are just going to shrug their shoulders and like, nah, I just want to watch the future develop. Now, I'm personally in the latter category. I think it's safe to assume you are too. I don't know where Shelton fits in the greater scheme of things. It is kind of funny that it airs after, Apollo's big victory. Is that a feud that they're going to do? Apollo and Shelton. What is Shelton's utility on the SmackDown roster? Is he going to be in that world title picture? Or is he going to challenge because he has quite a history with the Intercontinental title? Could he be a future threat to The Miz? Again, I think about the fact that he's 41. I don't really know what he's bringing to the table. It's just a big question mark for me right now.
Yeah. I love how into the idea of these guys winning the Intercontinental title you are. It's just funny to me.
Well, I mean, mainly Apollo, because he's been my big. I'm just saying.
I know, but
Shelton's
you
always
say
been
Apollo,
that
but then
player.
you bring up Shelton Benjamin, and I don't think you're that even far off. Like, that's kind of my problem is that I feel like Shelton's going to come in and he already has that name recognition, and even though he's never really been known for his personality, I think that he's more likely to connect with the crowd than Apollo has so far. I feel like it's exciting that we're getting Shelton Benjamin. Like you said, he's 41, and I really think he is going to overshadow Apollo Crews.
I mean, how would you book him, given all the grievances that you and I have? Would you just, not even
I wouldn't have brought him into SmackDown in the first place. He'd be on Raw.
See, but so he'd be on Raw. But look, he is on SmackDown. We have to deal with it. How do you do damage control? I mean, do you just accept that him and Apollo would be feuding, or what? I
don't. Maybe put him in a tag team. I don't freaking know.
Because some people have been.
You know what you do to make them feel as separated as possible. You pick one of the two and put them in a tag team with someone else. So one of them is singles, the other one is in a tag team.
Right.
That way they don't feel as sort of identical twinsy as they are right now.
And I mean, let me say this, because I saw maybe one or two tweets, because it's not like it's been like a conflagration of tweets, like this wildfire of, this must happen. But I just feel the need to address this personally, because I know some people are like, what if Shelton Benjamin comes back and he associates with American Alpha? Personally, as a huge mark for those guys, I hope that doesn't fucking happen. And I'm the same way, too, about Kurt Angle, because I know a lot of people are like, Team Angle 2.0. No, Kurt Angle needs American Alpha. American Alpha does not need Kurt Angle. I'm sorry, that's just honestly how I see it. I know it's Kurt fucking Angle, but seriously, these guys can win any crowd if you just let them do their thing. They don't need that kind of legitimizer like a Shelton or like a Kurt to give them any kind of extra boost. Their ability will do that on its own. And Chad Gable, you give that man a mic, and Jason Jordan, because I've liked him better. I think he's gotten more comfortable.
I think what it comes down to is their chemistry together kind of generates a charisma about the two of them as a unit.
Exactly. I think whether it's Kurt Angle, Shelton Benjamin's mama, whoever, it's just going to hamper these guys. So I am vehemently against that. Yeah. I really don't know. See, it's funny because I think I'm only saying Apollo or Shelton for Miz's next opponent because we really don't know where Miz is going next. I mean, maybe he'll even resume the thing with Darren Young, but I don't see how that's plausible given that Darren's a Raw superstar.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Miz's SummerSlam is looking like, and he's the Intercontinental Champion, so he's got to do something, I would think. Maybe he'll sit on the bench until Night of Champions. I don't know. But it's weird. It's really weird seeing that Shelton vignette, and I know people were popping for it, but I was kind of meh, so I'll see what happens.
Yeah, It's so weird because we are kind of in this weird state where we try not to let our emotions get the better of us, and we try and kind of look at everything from as rational a standpoint as we can.
Right.
And because of that, it also kind of hampers our ability to get really excited over things that we feel like don't make sense.
Right.
Like, I wish I could be super hyped for the fact that, oh my God, Shelton Benjamin's coming back. But taking that step back and looking at it from that sort of outsider's perspective as sort of, the big picture, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to cheer for Shelton. I'm just saying that, again, kind of like the Bayley thing, obviously Bayley coming up and getting that big pop was awesome, and obviously Sasha winning the title on Raw was awesome. But if they hadn't brought Bayley in on Sunday, maybe they would have been able to drag out Charlotte's title reign till SummerSlam, and Sasha's win could have been that much more important.
Right. And let me just tack on to this segment, too. Shelton's arrival definitely seems to add credence to the rumors, because I was reading stuff that both Shelton and I believe MVP were making returns to the WWE. So
No. See, here's the thing. I read the same thing, but I also read even after that MVP failed his physical, so he would not be.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
Never mind. Because I was going to tag on to that. That MVP's probably not too far behind, but I guess he is because he failed his physical. So we're really just dealing with Shelton at the moment. I don't know who else is going to be, coming back. It's funny because certain older acts I'm probably going to be more excited about than others. Like, for example, Tajiri's probably going to have a spot after the Cruiserweight Classic. I'm more excited about him right now. Brian Kendrick. I love the Brian Kendrick. I think I was in a minority about that because I freaking love the Brian Kendrick when he first had his run, singles on SmackDown. I thought it was great. But yeah, Shelton, and I was a big fan of Shelton. It's just, I don't know. I have my reservations about it. And as I think we both do, obviously, and we'll just see how it plays out. So, anything more you want to say about this?
No, I don't think so. Let's move on. Up next, Dolph Ziggler had this promo talking about how everything's back in his hands and he lost sight of himself, but tonight it all starts over. So, John, what were your thoughts on this?
I enjoyed it. I even tweeted, that's the best promo I think Ziggler's delivered in quite some time. And I don't know if that's necessarily because he actually got time to do it or if he really just seemed to care about it or a combination of the two. But yeah, I like how he made it personal. I grew up loving this business and I saw a main event in my hometown of Cleveland. And that was the moment that I said, that's going to be me. And really him talking at length about it should have been the giveaway. Oh shit, he's winning this, isn't he? But I think it was a case, kind of like we talked about in the Heat of the Night segment of the show. You kind of overlook a guy like Dolph because you think he's phased out. His best is behind him. He doesn't have that overness or anything. But yeah, I thought it was a great promo by Dolph and definitely a foreshadowing of things to come, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously we know what happened later on in the night, but that being said, up next, Becky Lynch versus Natalya. And again, it's weird. I'm finding myself, as we go through these segments, I'm finding myself feeling more and more like we're reviewing an episode of Raw, but not this new era Raw, pre-brand split Raw, where a lot of stuff happened, and it was decent, and I can't really complain about too much, but I'm not really super impressed by any one thing at all.
Yeah, what the funny thing about this is I thought this was better than the Battleground match, and not even just because of the finish. I liked some of the sequences of oh, I'm trying to hook in my submission, but no, I'm going to hook in my submission before you hook in your submission. I feel like Battleground did have good psychology with Natalya working over the legs, but I thought this had solid chain wrestling, and that catch-as-can style stuff. Ultimately, though, Becky does get the win with the disarmor. I wish I could have been stoked about this. And given what we got in the post-match of Becky's victory, I am curious what they're going to do with the women, both responding to the fact it's a bare-bones division, and more importantly, the elephant in the room, you have no championship. And I think Becky should be the leader of that division, but Becky's never really been one to win the big one, so I really can't get excited about anything she does. And really my big thing is I feel like this win should have come at Battleground anyway. So a little bit too late for my taste, but I am happy Becky got a win on the board, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Becky winning felt like, a foregone conclusion at this point.
Right.
Which did kind of take me out of the match. But at the same time, you kind of have to wonder, why did they decide to give Natty the win on the pay-per-view, and now Becky finally gets the win, but it's on television? maybe they just wanted more people to see Becky win, but at the same time, it feels like Natty's win was more important because it was at the pay-per-view.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. I just think it was a bad judgment call, personally.
Yeah. So up next, we had this weird segment. Becky wins, and then Renee gets in the ring and says, "So, Becky, how do you feel?" And she's all, "Call me Becky Balboa, baby." And then Alexa Bliss's music hits. And she came out and introduced herself as the hottest star on SmackDown Live. She says that she is the physical embodiment of the new era. But then she's also interrupted by, this time, Naomi.
Right.
So Naomi starts talking, and then Carmella comes out. And she starts cutting her shtick, and then Eva Marie's music hits.
Yes, and she gets this big voiceover just building her up, and they punctuate it with "All Red Everything, Eva Marie," and she comes out. I thought it was great. If this is the kind of packaging they're going to give her, I'm stoked with her being one of, if not the top heel of the SmackDown women's division. I mean, Ashton, my question for you, though, brother, because we talked about it on the, kind of Fallout draft analysis video. I think it was pretty much like a SmackDown Live first episode review, but it was the draft episode. SmackDown really doesn't have so much of a women's division. Again, they have no championship. They barely have anybody that makes it up. But I'm going to pretty much ask you the same thing that I asked you about Shelton a few moments ago. What do we do with this story here? Because obviously all these women are vying for supremacy. Do we do maybe a tournament that concludes at SummerSlam? Do we?
Yeah, I've never heard of a 6-person tournament before.
Well, you figure 2 for each, and then, oh yeah, that leaves an uneven 3 people. So maybe a triple threat at SummerSlam for the new SmackDown Women's Championship, which could be interesting.
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe. See, now this is kind of where I wish that WWE was more willing to kind of experiment, because I think a round robin tournament could be really interesting.
Yeah.
You have all 6 of these women in singles matches where all of them will face each of the other women in the division. And at the end of this tournament, the 2 women with the best records face each other for the championship.
Right.
I think that is the ideal way to go about it.
That could be good. Hell, I kind of, came out of my mouth earlier when I didn't mean to say, because I meant to say 6-pack challenge, championship scramble. You have 6 women. That'd be pretty interesting. Yeah, I just think, look, when you have a state of a women's division like SmackDown does, very few women, no championship, we're going to use an old saying of mine, you accentuate the positives, you hide the negatives. The positive is, I think all 6 of these women in their own way bring something to the table. The negative is just the pure dearth of it all. A lot's lacking in the division. So I think you do something really mind-blowing with these 6 women, because Raw was able to do Sasha Charlotte, and they're going to be able to lean on that return match for SummerSlam. SmackDown, I think if they want to make it seem like their women matter, you got to be innovative. So I like your idea of a round-robin tournament. Like I said, Championship Scramble could work. Even if you wanted to do just a basic tournament, but then your finals is a triple threat for the inaugural champion, that could work too. I'm just very curious what they do here, because all these women are vying for dominance, but dominance of what when it's not even embodied with a title, and there's not really much of a roster to even dominate, So it's going to be curious how they address this.
Yeah, so just to kind of dive a little further in this whole round robin tournament thing, how interesting would it be if you had, one woman go undefeated and another woman go 5-1 with the one, or I guess it would be 4-1, with the one loss being to the undefeated person, and then at SummerSlam, the one loss person, maybe that's Becky Lynch, beats the undefeated person.
Right.
Because then not only does that put the title on Becky, but that also then you have reason for the undefeated person to continue to go after Becky because she beat her in the tournament.
Now, do we obviously make like the undefeated person Eva Marie, or do we make it Alexa Bliss?
I would say, yeah. I'd say probably Eva.
That's
just
cool.
Have her cheat to win every match. Basically have her do what frickin' Makabe's doing, and even though it's not cheating, still just do like something like loophole-y, where she manages to win.
Yeah, I like that, or at least book her somewhat, but maybe in a more heelish way, like Darren Young, where all your wins definitely come off as fluky, but it doesn't really matter to her because she just feels like she's the best. Yeah, I think you could do a lot with Eva as the top heel of the SmackDown Women's Division. And again, like I said at the start, so I don't know how many angry comments I'm personally going to get where it's like, oh, John, fuck Eva. I'm trying to see the forest for the trees. I think she could be amazing for any women's babyface on SmackDown that wants to get that big pop and wants to deliver to Eva her personal comeuppance. So yeah, I definitely would push Eva hard, whether again it's, and again, like using my idea, because you expounded upon your idea of a round robin, if you do a championship scramble, remember, in a match like that, it's about who gets the last pin. And I could just picture all 5 other women putting in the work, and with like 5 seconds left on the clock, Eva just swoops in and gets a cover, maybe after somebody else's impact move or something. Like, I don't know, it'd just be freaking great. Just some way to really make it seem like you are the luckiest person and you don't even care because you're so self-deluded. Yeah, I think you could do a lot. So I'm excited how they respond to this. It's definitely a challenge, but how they overcome it could be very interesting.
Exactly.
What came after this, brother?
Well, the Baron Corbin promo where he talks about how I'm not doing this for my mom, I'm not doing this for someone on the SmackDown roster, I'm not doing this for any of you people, I'm doing this for me.
Yeah, I just love what an honest asshole he is. Like, he just comes about it so honestly. He embraces it. And again, like I said, we were talking about him a little bit earlier in the opening segment with the whole, 6-pack challenge. I don't think he's as charismatic, and that's why I said not an exact replica, but he could be the closest thing to a modern Kevin Nash, because he's also said before on WWE.com exclusives, before the draft, oh, I go where the money is. That's all I care about. I go where the money is. And yeah, you could just make Baron Corbin like, look, I'm dominant. I know it. I want to get paid. I want to be the man because I know the more things I do, the more main events I'm in, the more championships I win, the fatter the paychecks. And I love it because that pisses people off because we live in an age, especially with so many, indie guys and, that smart kind of culture where, oh, if you're doing that, you're not in the business for the right reasons because you got to be passionate, this and that. And I love passionate guys, but everybody's got to get paid. And Baron Corbin's just being honest about it, and that's what pisses everybody off. So I love a heel like that. I think it's so great for this age of ours.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about this?
Not really. I mean, I really do like that sort of like the comparison that you made where he kind of is basically the new generation Kevin Nash. I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten to the point where I just want to see them actually do something with him rather than just have him, talk all this junk and then not be able to back it up.
Oh, bro, I'm right there with you. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with everybody. I probably would have had a pretty significant pop had he won the 6-pack challenge tonight. Because I know a lot of people, and maybe even myself to a degree, would have said, well, this just seems out of nowhere and it's too soon. But I think I'm just that hungry for Corbin to do something where I'm like, yeah, throw him in there with Ambrose. Yep. So, yeah, I freaking love Baron Corbin, dude. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we had Miz TV.
Yes.
Miz TV with the Miz. Because he talks about how, his guest is the Legend Killer and he got where he was through evolution and created a legacy, and he's a former world heavyweight champion, The Miz.
Great fake out.
I love too because it all fits. Legend Killer, he shoved Bob Backlund,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could say all the things that he said fit. The Legend Killer thing fits. I mean, saying that somebody got where they were through evolution and created a legacy, you can say that about anyone. Right. And then, yeah, former world champion, also true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a good fake out. And then, Miz and Maurice do their usual thing where they're just heaping praise, on themselves and each other. Oh, we're so lucky to be married to each other. And then Randy Orton comes out, clearly in his I don't give a fuck mode still from Battleground.
Which is wonderful.
It really is. Like, he really just does not care. He just wants to get to that SummerSlam match and beyond. Because, he makes jokes. Oh, Miz, yeah, we all know you like to play with yourself. And, doing all the jabs like that. Tries to goad Miz into a match Miz is adamant, like, oh, no, I'm not competing with you. And there was this confusion, like, oh, is it going to be for the title? Is it not going to be for the title? Which I did agree with some people that tweeted at me that they'd love to see Randy Orton with the IC title. I agree. I think that could be somewhat similar to when John Cena had the US title. Really build the credibility of that title up, and the title matches could be pretty sick. But yeah, it turns out to be a non-title match because Maurice accepts on behalf of Miz's honor. You know, she feels the need, like he's got to defend his turf. So yeah, she takes the match on behalf of the Miz. And yeah, we go immediately right into that match. But before that, though, Ashton, did you have anything you wanted to say about Miz TV?
No, I just think that Randy Orton in the what are they going to do fire me mode that he's in right now needs to stay for as long as possible.
All right, well, I'll let you talk about the match then, Miz versus Randy Orton. What did you think about it?
I was worried about Orton, man. I mean, at least at first. Obviously, you could kind of start to tell once Miz started to really work over the shoulder that it wasn't a legit injury. But, you know, he took a bad fall to the outside, and he kind of had that moment where it was almost akin to when Wade Barrett broke his arm going into WrestleMania, when we all thought that he was definitely going to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, and he knew that he was going to miss WrestleMania because he hurt his arm so bad.
Right.
Kind of had that moment like, God damn it, why is this happening to me? I kind of thought that's what happened to Orton here. I thought that he like separated his shoulder again and he'd be out for another 9 months, and they'd have to find someone else to take on Brock and everything like that. And yeah, so luckily it wasn't a thing. Hopefully news doesn't come out that he just kind of toughed through it and dealt with it and that it is legit injured. But you know, just kind of based on what I feel like we've seen, I don't think that that's going to go that way because, again, Miz was really working the shoulder over, throwing him into the steps, into the barricade, that kind of stuff. So that is good news. The weird RKO thing, like he hits an RKO and then he just does nothing.
Yeah, it's like he was, you know, I will agree with commentary here because I feel like it was David Otunga who made this parallel. It was like Scar from The Lion King playing with a mouse. I felt like Randy was playing with his food. Like, oh, I could go for the pin, but I really want to send a message to Brock. And then,
you know, I feel like it would have been more effective for him to kind of do what Nia Jax did on Monday, where he goes for the pin, 1, 2, lift the head up.
Yeah,
and then you set up. And another thing too is I was kind of disappointed that the second time around all he did was another RKO. I kind of wish he would have whipped the pun out just for this occasion to set up for Brock.
Dude, I had to suppress the pop that I was going to make because there was one point where he went into the appropriate corner to do that, but I think it was just a gesture to fans, and I'm like, oh, god damn it, I really thought he was going to do it. Yeah, dude, I'm right there with, like, I would have loved, because look, wrestling, and whether we agree with this point of view or not, to me, I feel like a good portion of wrestling is creating an atmosphere.
Yep.
And I feel like you would have had great imagery following your lead, Ashton, if he had pinned The Miz, 2, lifts the head up, shakes his head, looks right into a camera, says, Brock, this is you at SummerSlam, maybe like a throat slit or just like crazy
All
eyes.
All he really
like
needs to do is say, Brock,
bam.
This is for you.
Exactly. And then bam, RKO, and then the pin.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, obviously we know he's facing Brock at SummerSlam because of these talking segments. You know, Talk is Jericho and now Miz TV. But for Randy Orton to really be in that zone, I think would get people pumped. And the crazy thing is, like, us being worried about his shoulder being injured, maybe I should be more worried about him being in the ring with Brock because, I mean, you're talking about a guy, he injured his shoulder once doing his own taunt, you know, setting up for the RKO. This most recent injury was taking out the garbage. You know, I mean, if we've always talked about how concerned we would have been for Daniel Bryan getting in the ring with Brock, I do have a little bit of that concern for Orton there. I hope he doesn't get re-injured, but I'm still super excited for the match. And yeah, this is an all right match. I'm just glad to see that Randy Orton is back in the ring. Like the whole wrist tape he did with his hands. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, Randy Orton definitely seems ready for SummerSlam.
Yeah, he does.
All right, what came after this?
Up next, we had American Alpha getting a video package, and they debut next week, but that just seems so far away.
Oh, I even tweeted, I have to wait a whole nother week for American Alpha. Fuck you, SmackDown Live. Fuck you, but I'll be there. So that's the thing. Like, I can be salty, but you have me, goddammit. You have me. Great stuff, man. They're really going to set the crowd ablaze. I can't wait.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, what's next?
Oh, to me, that's the exciting part is how massive of a pop are they going to get? Like, are they going to get the Enzo and Cass treatment, or is it going to be a little bit lower than that since they're not really the talkers that Enzo and Cass are?
I think it's going to be a little lower than that, but give it time. Give it, because I really think they're going to become a commodity, and I hope next week we don't come on here and be like, that pop, or that reaction, we should say, well, that was, and just be like, wow, that was a letdown. I really hope they receive these guys well. Really, really do. So we'll see.
Yeah, brother. All right. So now we can move on, and we've got this Heath Slater thing. This is interesting because earlier on in the night, from what I understand on the pre-show, which, I mean, I guess they're doing storyline on the pre-show, but that's still not enough to get us to actually watch it. Just no, we're not doing 3 hours on Monday and Tuesday. So on the pre-show, Heath Slater kind of entered the building, set off a metal detector. A security guy came up to him with one of those metal detecting wands, and he was like, I got to use this on you. And he just pie-faced him and kept going to the SmackDown set.
Okay.
Like, he basically, in a roundabout way, he kind of broke into the SmackDown Live arena.
Right.
So that was the setup for this. And then he shows up. I think it was John Skyler in the ring. I hope I got that name right, because it's it's a guy that's in a tag team, and it's John Skyler, and I don't remember maybe Steve Cutler is the tag team.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't remember which one this guy is, because it's the short, chubby looking Adam Cole looking guy.
Right.
But whoever it was, it didn't matter, because Heath Slater showed up and beat the crap out of him and threw him out of the ring.
Which was great. Now, the big question is, and I'm going to let you start this off, what did you think of Heath's promo here?
This promo, the one before Shane came out, was okay. It was fine.
Right.
I think he pretty much just said, the hottest free agent in sports entertainment. How did I not get drafted? And all that kind of thing. But then Shane comes out, and Shane says, Heath, there are better ways to get a job than what you're doing right now. You could just send in your resume. And then Heath Slater cut an amazing promo. And by the way, it's also worth noting that he said that it was the new error.
Yeah.
And then when he was talking about sending a contract, he kept on saying, sign a contract.
Yeah.
So either Heath Slater's really dumb, or his new gimmick, is that he's charismatic but still really dumb.
I'm hoping the latter. I love this promo. I thought
so
Heath
good.
really sold himself. And you know what? Like, I think he even posted on Instagram when everybody was like, oh, Heath, you didn't get drafted. What are you going to do? And he's like, I didn't get drafted. I mean, the world is open to me. Like, I have all these possibilities. You guys don't understand. You want to be like, oh, poor Heath. I'm the luckiest guy in the draft because I can go wherever I want. And, he exercised that power tonight in what was a great promo. And that promo got me so invested in Heath. I actually wanted Shane. I actually even kind of expected Shane to do it, given that he is more babyface. He has said, like, oh, it's the land of opportunity. Be like, you know what, Shane? Or, you know what, Heath? It was going to be a six-pack challenge, but let's throw you in there and make it a Magnificent Seven. I wanted them to give him that shot. But no, Shane just wanted Heath to keep talking so that Rhino could come in and hit the gore. And you know what the sad thing is? I would want to be excited about the prospect. Oh, well, maybe Heath could win. Heath's not beating Rhino. And that's really the disappointing thing here, is that I think he's just fodder for Rhino so he can get some of that momentum, and then maybe Rhino will be fodder for somebody else that WWE has in mind, maybe Baron Corbin, I don't know, but it just really sucks that Heath is always on the low end of the totem pole. I'm not asking for the guy to be a world champion, but after a promo like that, do something a little different, even if you have no, expectation of doing anything with him after that. I just feel like they kind of missed an opportunity here to me.
Yeah, and do we really need another Corbin Rhino feud?
No, we don't. I just fear that we'll get one. So.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, obviously that's possible, but hopefully it doesn't happen. Regardless, Heath Slater's promo was awesome, talking about sign a resume. Sign a resume? What are you talking about? Go on the WWE Network on your computer back there, type in my name, and you'll see my resume. I was the mastermind behind the Nexus. I was the mastermind behind the Core. One Man Band, baby. 3MB, Social Outcasts. Like, he kept on listening to all this. And just the passion and how into it he was. Like, I think that the one thing Heath Slater has that nobody has ever really questioned is charisma.
Yes,
he is
absolutely.
Very charismatic. He's kind of slow, but he's extremely charismatic. He is entertaining. And when he really puts his mind into something like this, he pulls it off. And this was great. And this, like, it's odd because he's really a lower card jobber kind of guy, but this made him feel so important.
I mean, let me ask you, Ashton, because I've been kind of asking your more creative opinions throughout the review. Like, would you have just, like, taken the chance and just put him in that main event as kind of like a jolt to the system? Would you have had him do the feud with Rhino anyway, except we actually know, like, he'd go over? How would you use Heath after a promo like this? Because clearly we were jazzed about it, and you should do something, right? So.
Yeah, I would probably, you know what? Personally, I wouldn't have had Rhino kill him. I would have had Shane put him in a legitimate singles match against somebody who maybe is just a notch above him on the totem pole and have him take that person to the freaking limit but still lose.
Okay.
And then the following week, same thing, and just do it for like a month until he finally gets the win, and you build something and you really kind of give people reason to care about Heath Slater.
Right.
You know, it's that's the thing, is wrestling booking really isn't rocket science.
Let me ask you, when you say give people a reason to care about Heath Slater, and this isn't me, like, I don't want to turn this into a running gag, because he said, like, he's wanted to do this in interviews, and I think that's why it came to my mind. Do we want to build him ultimately as a babyface, because he does have a little bit of a social media following, maybe to a feud with whoever the Intercontinental Champion is, because he's said his dream is to be the Intercontinental Champion. I have read that in multiple Heath Slater interviews. Do we maybe get him to a point where he could legitimately hold that title? Like, what do you think the end game is for a guy like Heath, where he's at right now?
I think the Intercontinental title is not an unreasonable goal for him.
Right.
I think that, I mean, after tonight,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, he felt so important tonight. I don't think that that's, you know, above Heath Slater after a promo like he cut tonight. Like, this, to me, this shows that he is sort of getting ready to enter his prime, you know?
Right, yeah, I agree.
And you don't take somebody who's about to enter their prime and just kind of say, you're still a jobber, go away.
Exactly. I agree.
You've got guys like John Schuyler for that reason, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I think there's a lot you can do with him, and I think that just having him show up, complain, and get gored was a massive waste of his talents.
I will say, and I'm kind of undecided about this, but given that he's not exclusive to either brand, I would have him show up on Raw next Monday. I mean, you have 3 hours to kill. Maybe have him cut a similar promo or something. Like, keep showing up until maybe he does something on either show, and the first big success he has on whatever show, that's the show he sticks with. Maybe that'll be the story they tell. I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
What came after this?
We had AJ Styles cutting a promo talking about how he's angry about the club being on Raw, and he's angry that he's being forced to face 5 other guys just to get an opportunity to face Dean Ambrose for the title. And then he just kind of accepts it, and he's like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to beat up Apollo Crews, beat up Bray Wyatt, beat up, Baron Corbin, and beat up, who else was in this match other than Cena that he saved for last?
You said Apollo, you said Baron, Bray Wyatt, Dolph Ziggler.
Beat up Dolph Ziggler, and then, of course, my favorite thing, beat up John Cena.
I love how the actual winner of the match kind of escaped both of us there. That's kind of funny.
Well, he's the most forgettable of the 6, too, so let's see how that works out.
But yeah, I like this promo from AJ. Succinct, basic heel promo, like, oh, why wasn't this just handed to me? I have to go out and earn it. Oh! And, good stuff.
Yeah, all right. So then we get to the match itself. But before the match starts, Bray Wyatt also has kind of a different style promo where he's on the Titantron and he says, change is a part of life, but some things will always stay the same. And tonight, 5 men will fall, and soon enough, I really will have the whole world in my hands. And then you have a pause, and he does the Buffalo, I'm here. And then he blows out the lantern. We get the entrance. And it was kind of weird, too, because we got all 6 entrances, and then the match started, and then we went to commercial.
Yeah, I was like, after that Bray promo, I'm like, oh yes, I'm so ready for you and Dean at SummerSlam, which is funny because the matches they had in their program weren't even really that stellar, but Bray really got me in the mood. And then yeah, we go to a commercial, so my buzz isn't even really good for anything because then I have to wait. Damn. So, but yeah, good promo from Bray here.
Yeah. So Bray, yeah, that promo, but then the match, like I said, the match starts and then we get to commercial. When we get back, we have Bray Wyatt and AJ Styles double teaming Apollo Crews.
Right. Yeah, similar to Kevin Owens and Rusev working over Finn Balor in that Fatal 4-Way on Raw. You have AJ Styles and Bray Wyatt working together, kind of isolate Apollo Crews. Funny how NXT guys are so feared by everybody else. Um, and yeah, that he was getting picked apart. Match was nice. I thought it had a great pace. The one moment in the match that I was kind of like, really? Was John Cena AAing everybody. Baron Corbin showed a little resistance, but even he got the AA. And so, yeah, but I mean, what were some of your favorite moments or even low moments in this match, Ashton?
Yeah, well, to me, this really just became a finisher fest. Like, you just had people throwing their finishers out there willy-nilly. I know, like I was kind of talking about earlier with the whole AJ Bray beatdown on Apollo, I thought that was hilarious that AJ trusted Bray and then Bray made him pay for that. But yeah, just the finishers, man. Like, I think Bray was the first one to throw a Sister Abigail, but then we just had so many getting, like, Dolph Ziggler hits him with a zigzag, and then I forget who came in and hit Dolph Ziggler. It might have even been Cena, because then AJ Styles literally hit a phenomenal forearm out of nowhere. As in, like, the camera wasn't even on him when he springboarded. It was focused on John Cena as he got hit by the forearm.
Right. Which I thought was pretty cool because it kind of gave that suddenness like an RKO, except you actually see the RKO from beginning to end, even when it is sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a finisher fest, like you said. When the smoke clears, Dolph Ziggler stands tall because he hits AJ with a super kick, which Dolph has won quite a few matches with, if not with the zigzag. And tonight was one of those nights. He pins AJ Styles. He's the number one contender for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So just to really kind of draw the parallels, since we're doing this whole brand supremacy thing, SmackDown has offered up as its championship match Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And yet Raw, for its inaugural WWE Universal Championship, has got Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. SmackDown is going to be interesting for sure, but Raw wins.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, they certainly win in an execution. They'll probably win, but it's an interesting choice to go with Dolph, and especially interesting to choose Dolph for a guy like Dean, who is legitimately hot, who the crowd does legitimately love to work with. And, we were kind of talking about it earlier. I mean, Ashton, to me, we kind of aired our grievances in the opening heat of the night. We both agreed, Dolph turns heel, but I know I said, like, oh, I'd have him do sneak attacks, give him a lot of promo time. Is there anything you would personally do to really try and get this program to work? Is there any idea in your head how we can really make this main event seem like a viable main event for the SmackDown brand? I think we both agree, again, Dolph turns heel, but then what after that? What do we do to really make this seem compelling to people?
Well, I mean, Dolph can't just be a heel. He needs to be a desperate heel.
Right.
He needs to be willing to do anything it takes to win, whether it's low blows or eye pokes or any, like, make Dolph the slightly less comedic Toru Yano of SmackDown. Make him just, he doesn't care if the fans like him. He doesn't care if the fans hate him. All he cares about is picking up that W.
Yeah. It's funny because in a way, I'm not saying they actually did this, but like early on in Dolph's career, especially like his first major program with Rey Mysterio, it was funny because he really would legitimately try and out wrestle Rey Mysterio. Relying on that amateur background and, all that stuff. And he'd go hold for hold with Rey. But as the match progressed and he realized, okay, this shit isn't getting anything done, he would try and encourage Maria, who was the valet at the time. Yeah, you know how long ago that was. Remember when Maria was part of WWE? Maria, hand me a chair. Maria, hand me the championship. I would kind of do maybe a similar thing here. Maybe have him go into the confidence like, oh, I was undefeated at Kent State. Like I've got all this ability. I'm so damn good. And then when he realizes that's not getting it done, then you do the eye pokes. Then you undo the turnbuckle pads. Then you do everything. I think that could be interesting personally.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would do. Here's my bigger question for you, though, Ashton, because I've really been asking you a lot tonight. I've really been poking your brain a lot tonight. Here's my final
I'm waiting for you to answer a freaking question, man.
I would if you had one for me. Do you have any for me?
I just feel like you're not really giving your opinion. You're just asking me for everything on my end.
I mean, you already, I'm optimistic about Ziggler Ambrose. I was shocked about it. I'm not going to outright hate it, as it seemed like a lot of people on Twitter did, or at the very least were indifferent about it. I can't even say I'm indifferent. I do have that curiosity about it. Like a lot of time I have curiosity with things that WWE decides to do that I either think are going to be a train wreck or maybe even have a kernel of promise. I think these two could tell an interesting story, especially given that Dolph's stock really hasn't been that high in the last few years, which again is a problem as we noted in the opening. But I think if WWE is smart, and that's a big if, you could utilize that into a great storytelling tool. I would have Dolph come out and just cut his, chest open for everybody and be honest about the fact, yeah, I know that my stock hasn't been high. Yeah, I know when I ousted the Authority, I could have been a WrestleMania main event, and yet I was still jerking the curtain. But I'm in charge of my destiny now. That whole theme from the initial promo, I would ride with that shit, but in a heelish way. Because he could even say, even you people were in charge of my destiny even more than I was. Kind of like when Eddie Guerrero turned heel and he said, all of you people took away my Latino heat. That's why I couldn't beat Rey Mysterio. Dolph could say, well, I had no freedom over my future. That's why I wasn't racking up the world titles that I should have been. And then, of course, Dean, being, the dude, Dean Ambrose, could just come out and be like, well, hey, man, that's just kind of your opinion, Big Lebowski sort of shit. And then, hit Ziggler dirty deeds and just be this kind of chill guy while Dolph's just working himself into a frenzy and taking himself so seriously. I think it could be a good story. Is it going to surpass Balor Rollins? Not likely. I mean, even on paper, it's Seth freaking Rollins versus Finn fucking Balor. Yeah. But knowing that Dolph is kind of the down on his luck kind of contender, and not even in a Cinderella man kind of way, but in a more heelish, I'm jaded, screw all you guys, I'm here now, it's a restart, which means a new Dolph Ziggler in the process. I could have fun with that story. So now that I've given my elaborate thoughts on it, what I want to ask you, because this is the more intriguing story, honestly, in my opinion, to come out of this match. Dolph's got a match at SummerSlam. That leaves 5 guys right now that don't. What do we do with these 5 guys at SummerSlam? Because I think you and I can both agree. Cena, AJ, 2 in a singles match at SummerSlam, right?
Right. So that leaves 3.
3. Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, and Bray Wyatt. What do we do with these 3 guys?
Well, I think I'm going to stick with your booking for Apollo and have him go after The Miz.
Okay, so that leaves Baron and Bray.
I have no clue what to do with Bray. To me, if he's not in the main event, what can you do with Bray?
You know what? Just to kind of give an answer for Baron Corbin, and to be clear, guys, when we're giving these answers, I'm not even trying to give answers that I would like as a fan. I'm just trying to be objective. Maybe Baron is Shelton's first big match back.
Yeah.
That's what they did with Baron at NXT.
No. That's not going to happen because Shelton's not going to be back in time for SummerSlam. I guarantee it.
You really don't think so? Because SummerSlam's still several weeks away, isn't it?
No, SummerSlam's like 4 weeks away.
Well, you don't think that's enough time to debut Shelton?
It's not a matter of whether it's enough time to debut him. It's a matter of whether they will, and they won't. Whenever they put out these vignettes and they say coming soon, it's never less than a month away.
That is true. Okay, well, operating with that, you know what? I'm just going to go with my fallback answer because Heat's not going to be a freaking program, so I'm going to say Baron Corbin and Rhino at SummerSlam. I hate it, but I could see that happening. Which still leaves Bray. But, I mean, what would your answer be for Corbin? Because you still haven't given one for Corbin.
Yeah, I mean, Corbin, let me look through the roster. Because I actually have it. Corbin, Kalisto.
Okay, Corbin, Kalisto. I can sign on to that.
Or, Corbin, Zack Ryder.
Ooh, that's always nice to see Zack Ryder get destroyed. Yeah.
Or because, we don't want Rhino and Corbin against each other. Let's team them up and put them against the Hype Bros.
I like that too, because it also gives Mojo Rawley something to do. And while I think he's a wasted pick, you still got to use him, get your mileage worth. So, yeah, what do we do with Bray, though? That's the big question mark to me. What do we
I
do
don't
with
know
him?
what you can do with Bray at this point. I mean, you've got Cena and Styles. Maybe Bray runs in on the main event. Maybe like the main event's going down and you've got Dolph and Dean and that kind of stuff's going on, and maybe Dean picks up the win and then Bray's music hits and he comes out.
You know what's funny? If Apollo wasn't already a lock, and I do think that's a better place for him anyway, facing The Miz. I mean, Bray cost Apollo that six-pack challenge tonight, and he freaked Apollo out with his whole spider walk. So, I don't know, maybe just a brief Bray Apollo program would be cool, but I want Bray to be that main event guy, and no offense to Apollo, but I think him being in the ring with Apollo would diminish his stock just slightly, but that still leaves the question, what do you do with him anyway? And that's really frustrating me. What do
Yeah.
you do with Bray?
The only other guy on this roster that I could see doing anything with Bray is Eric Rowan, unless they want to stick him with the Ascension or something like that. I don't know. Maybe Bray versus Demon Kane. I mean, that's kind
And see, I was gonna, and that's the worst case scenario to me is Demon Kane.
Well, I think the worst case scenario is us asking ourselves what you do with Bray Wyatt. Like, we're already in the worst case scenario. There's not really much you can do with it at this point. He should be in the main event.
He should. And you know what? I think I could forgive Demon K versus Bray only if, like, the booking you gave Kane tonight in the Battle Royal, make him dominant for that little bit and then have Bray snuff him out.
Yeah.
I think you make him dominant, Bray snuffs him out, and then I would still go with your booking, have it be that Bray's night isn't even over, because whether he interferes actually during the match or in the post-match and attacks the winner and he goes off the air with, follow the buzzards, and they do the, the whole Bray Wyatt cut in, cut out thing, I could dig that. So yeah, in fact, it would be full circle, because wasn't Bray Wyatt's pay-per-view debut at a SummerSlam against Kane? Wasn't that where their Inferno match was?
Yeah, the Ring of Fire match.
Yeah, and then you do Bray versus Kane again, except this time he takes it all the way. He beats Kane, interferes in either, towards the end of the match or just straight up post-match of the main event, and stakes his claim for a title match. That's what we do with Bray. I think I could get behind that.
I guess, man. I don't even know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love it if he would stake his claim for a title match, but I don't think they're going to do that, just because AJ and Cena is probably going to be more of a number one contender match than anything.
Oh, yeah, you got a point there. Why do they have such an aversion about Bray in the title picture? I don't understand it.
Yeah, it is so weird. Like, and I'd say it's less now since he doesn't really have the family backing him up, but he's got this potential to go on this sort of reign of terror that we haven't seen in WWE in years.
Right.
And they just have no willingness to pull the trigger on that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now I feel like now that he has no family left, I mean, it's literally just Rowan. So right. I guess you could bring back Harper and have those three guys kind of go on their original run, but still, it's, without Strowman, it feels like there's less endgame to Bray's reign of terror, because Strowman could have been the one to end it in the first place. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think I don't even know, man. It's weird. And let me also bring this back to what we were saying, and specifically what I was saying after the draft was over. As soon as the draft was over, we got on here and we talked about it. And what did I say about SmackDown? The only way you're going to make this show great is by revolving the whole thing around Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
And they're doing the exact opposite. They're basically shoving Bray off in a corner and saying, hey, man, we'll use you when we need you, but not until then.
But Dolph Ziggler, though? Like, that is the thing. Like, you even know, because I told you in conversation, my second live tweet of the night was, I'm picking Bray for that six-pack challenge. And I had such a good feeling. And they go with Dolph. I mean, I have to agree. Again, I'm keeping an open mind about Dolph Ambrose, as you could tell by my assessment of the program. But that doesn't mean, that's not to be equated with, oh, he's okay with Bray Wyatt getting the snub, because I'm not. Not even close. I think you missed a huge opportunity. I agreed with your assessment that night when you said the whole thing needs to revolve around Bray Wyatt. And now he's going to have to wait until maybe Hell in a Cell, because I could see AJ Styles getting the title shot at Night of Champions. Maybe Bray would even have to wait as late as Survivor Series. And the thing is, the roster is so paper thin. What do you do until then? I mean, it's dawned on both of us that A, we struggled to find something for Bray to begin with, and then when we resigned ourselves to something, it was Demon Kane. Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
That is bad. I don't know, dude. I want to be excited about Bray, and I want Bray Wyatt fans, like diehard Bray Wyatt fans, to be excited about Bray, because he's going out on his own in a brand where, and again, I don't want to denigrate SmackDown, but they're kind of doing it to themselves. This brand on paper, it should be the easiest task in the world to become world champion, in my mind. And, Bray should be one of those guys to hold that championship, but they pass on him again. This shows me they have an aversion to Bray in the title picture, because you went with Dolph. Not even AJ or Cena, you went with Dolph. That's how committed you were with anybody but Bray. I don't know, man. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Do you have anything more you want to say about anything? Dolph in the title picture, the Bray Wyatt's directionlessness, or anything?
Well, Bray Wyatt's directionlessness is the worst thing, because I mean, we agreed that the best thing that you could do to make this brand interesting is revolve the show around him, and like I said, the exact opposite.
Exactly.
That said, I think we should move on.
Yeah, absolutely. High spots and low shots. I'm going to say my low shot's AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Actually a very similar problem to Roman Reigns. Lost the match at Battleground, had a chance to bounce back in a major way, and he's the one that ate the pin. So, yeah, AJ Styles is my low shot for sure.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid low shot. I think my low shot's going to be Heath Slater, because he cut an amazing promo, and then he got overshadowed by some old guy from Canada.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to make Heath Slater my honorary low shot. My actual low shot's The Miz.
Yeah, okay.
You got destroyed, dude. And,
yeah,
and the worst part is you didn't even want the match to begin with. Your wife accepted it for you.
And you're the Intercontinental Champion on top of that. And you got treated like some local competitor towards the very end of it. So, yeah, I agree with that. My high spot, man, I don't want to go for the low-hanging fruit, but I really can't see anything better. I'm just going to go Dolph Ziggler. I mean, a guy that I think everybody on Twitter, we certainly was just kind of saying like, oh, he's just filling space, ends up being the freaking winner and is one half of SmackDown's response to Raw's main event. He's one half of their WWE World Heavyweight Championship match. That is insane to me. I've heard
knowing that, it almost makes me tempted to make Raw my high spot.
Yeah, dude, and can I just point out, too, this really does show, and maybe it is just for this one paper, because I'll be curious how SmackDown, it's funny I said Night of Champions. Shane even said at the start of the show, August something or other, their first show, Backlash. And
September 11th.
September 11th, so that's probably where AJ is going to get his title shot. That was my mistake. But it's funny to me, Raw, the one show that we've associated for years with, Authority and, these guys, whatever, they go all in on the new guard with Finn Balor. Nobody can deny that. Anybody that was huffing and puffing about Reigns had to be ecstatic because they went all in on Finn. And that even unintentionally rhymed. That's amazing. With SmackDown, you go with a guy that could have been something, that should have been something, but it was a missed opportunity, exactly as we talked about in the opening. It is amazing, that contrast, because while I think Raw did absolutely the right thing, giving all that to Finn, and I'll go even further and say they'd still be doing the right thing if they opted to give the championship to Finn, even though I know some TwitWoW listeners disagree, like Alex Foster. You think that would be overexposure? That'll be an interesting discussion to have down the road.
Dude, I'm saying it right now. I would not be at all surprised if Finn won on SummerSlam.
I wouldn't be either, but I'm still picking Seth, personally.
And I know that this is sort of the most basic possible smarky thing to say, but it really did kind of feel like Triple H was running Raw, Vince was running SmackDown.
Yeah, because you go with Dolph. It's almost like if Vince was running it.
That's why I say it feels like Vince was running it, because it's like Vince being like, all right, we need to feel trendy, damn it. Let's push that Dolph Ziggler guy. The fans love him, don't they?
Exactly, and it's like Vince was so late with the pulse.
Yeah.
Because it's
like so typical Vince, though.
Yeah, it's like Vince remembered Dolph's name, but he remembered him from that time when he was hot, but decided not to push him. And he still conflated that time with this one.
Yep.
Like, oh, Dolph's odd, so we could do something, right? No, to me, Bray or AJ would have been the best choices. And me personally, I was more in on Bray simply because I wanted AJ to finish his stuff with Cena first.
Right. I you know, as great as it would have been, I had no hopes whatsoever of AJ winning. And this kind of makes a little more sense. I really wasn't afraid at all of John Cena winning.
Right.
I was fairly confident that those guys were not going to win because of the fact that they had unfinished business and that they were going to have a singles match with each other at SummerSlam.
Right. And, you know, here we are, though. SmackDown chooses Ziggler while Raw went all in, and it paid off in a huge way. Because even look at the contrast, and I know this is kind of really narrowing the horizon, but just looking at Twitter alone, everybody embraced Finn, dude. Everybody that I saw, now I know there's always going to be a small corner of the population that's like, no, Finn sucks, and of course they're entitled to their opinion. But everybody
even people like Alex Foster who just think that Finn going all the way would be overexposure.
Exactly. But for the most part, the tone of the Raw of new era, new guard seemed universally received.
Yeah, I mean, Sasha winning the title, Strowman and Nia Jax getting squash matches, Enzo and Cass destroying the Shining Stars. You know, a lot went down on Raw that felt very much like, let's push NXT, let's push the new guard, let's really emphasize that we are new and hip and with it. And then on SmackDown, it was like someone trying to be new and hip and with it, but not realizing that things that would have worked 3 years ago aren't going to work today.
Exactly. The contrast is just so sharp. And again, building on that Twitter reaction, I think there was like everything from just sheer anger at the show, particularly the finish.
Well, and even
really
the Heath Slater segment, felt like something out of Raw 1000, where he was building up and, you know, getting destroyed by all these legends. But then, like, he comes out and cuts this awesome, heartfelt, passionate promo, and then Rhino.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I mean, do you have any concluding remarks about... Well, actually, wait. Who was your high spot? Did you co-sign on my high spot at Dolph Ziggler? I forget.
No, I didn't. My high spot's Becky Lynch.
Oh, okay, I'm so... We were about to, like... Because we're talking so much. Yeah, Becky Lynch is your high spot. I agree with you. She beat Natalya. Sucks that she got interrupted. All these people wanting to give Becky shit, man. I'm really starting to get angry with it.
She really just cannot just have a good night.
I want her to win once in life. I mean, if anybody deserves that, it's Becky Lynch. And this is coming from Johnny Scumbag, the guy known for laughing at the failures of others.
That's true.
Give her something, people.
Yeah.
Seriously. And I know for a fact Alex Foster agrees with me on that. So, yeah, with that said, do you have anything you want to say about SmackDown?
I thought that SmackDown was overall not a horrible show, but at the end of the day, very much a flawed show.
I think I'd give it like a B-. My personal grade.
Well, I would give it a 7 out of 10, and then in, you know, the high school that I went to, at least, that translates to a C-.
Right. So I think I gave it a little bit of a higher grade than you did,
yeah.
But still, like, at least neither one of us was like, oh, this fails!
Right. No, so, again, neither one of us gave it a below a 6 out of 10, which would have constituted failure. We gave it, you know, you said B+, so that's an 8 out of 10. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Average 7.5 out of 10, literally right down the middle, 75%. That is the definition of a C, which is average, which is what this show was. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. There were some iffy moments. There were some pretty good moments, but nothing really blew me away and nothing really pissed me off to an, you know, dramatic degree or anything like that. It just, I think we just expected more because of how high Raw set the bar.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I say we expected more, but we both said last week SmackDown got the shaft.
Yeah, that is true.
And I don't even think necessarily that tonight was an example of them having a poor roster. I think tonight was an example of them not necessarily utilizing their roster to its maximum potential, which they would have needed to do in order to produce compelling television, because any other sort of writing is going to make you fall short because your roster is not great.
Exactly.
Like, if you have a strong roster, you can you can get away with a few flubs here and there, and the roster will make up for it. But with SmackDown's roster, you really do need to have a perfect game in order to put on really good television, and they didn't tonight.
I think my sentiments exactly. With that said, guys, this has been SmackDown Live. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Partner, what question do you have for our subscribers this week?
What will American Alpha do next week? Specifically, what team will they beat next week?
Absolutely. I love that question. Guys, get commenting down below. I personally think the Ascension. That's my opinion. We'll see what they do.
I don't disagree with you. I agree. It'll probably be the Ascension.
All right, guys, you already know all the stuff to check out because of the background, and you can tune in tomorrow for, if you're here for G1 Climax, we'll be covering Day 6. I think that's the B block. Should be very interesting what tournament matches, shake out there and the results. Then our NXT review and our Cruiserweight Classic live reactions. So it's going to be a stacked day Wednesday. And, yeah, that's it for now. And until then, guys, tune in and peace out.